So have continued to work with the arts community, was on the board for Gallery 5 for a brief stint, trying to help to broaden the art world and make sure it's accessible for Richmond and the community. And I think that's probably why we were on one of CNN's top list of places to visit, is because of, all of the people in the creative community that continue to make sure that this is a beautiful city to participate in.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network on ESPN Richmond 106.1 and Choice 105.3. Welcome to America's Healthiest City. Good morning. I'm your host, Will Melton, and today in the studio I have Maria Carra Rose, the candidate for 3rd District City Council in the city of Richmond. We're going to have a great conversation today, wide-ranging. Before we get started, if you're new to this program, we are all about making Richmond, the entire region, the healthiest in America by 2033. We're going to do it together. And if you would visit americashealthiestcity.com to learn more about this community partnership, you can see our ideas board. You can learn what it takes to become an ambassador. And you can see what others have contributed to this program through our interviews in the past. If you're not following us on socials, please hop over there. And if you're not listening to this podcast, please subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts. Without further ado, Carra, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming in. We are in this exciting time of change in our community, and we will have potentially some new leaders. We will definitely have some new leaders at every scale of politics. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. But we're always really interested to learn more about the folks who come in here, what they're doing to advance things in the community. And so I really want to just start off with your background. Are you a native to Richmond, or did you move here? And if you did, what brought you?
I am not a native Richmonder, but I'm a native Virginian. I grew up in Northern Virginia, in Fauquier County, and came down to Richmond to go to VCU. Went to VCU, got an arts and materials study degree, and fell in love with it, and bought a house in Northside and have lived there ever since. That
seems to be the story for a lot of folks who I talk to. We do have the fortune to talk to folks who were born and raised here, and some have never left. But everybody has something to bring from their past experiences. So tell me a little bit about your perception of Richmond, that dichotomy between where you grew up and being here, and what has it been about Richmond that's kept you here?
I grew up at the end of a very long street in the middle of nowhere, and love people and love being a part of a community. And so what kept me here is just the vast amount of people that live here and the opportunities to engage with community at different levels.
Well, there are definitely different people in the world. Some folks don't really want to be out in the public and talking to everybody. And then some of us, we have radio shows so that we can talk to all the people that we want to. And some of us choose to lead our communities. And I think that's a noble pursuit. So similarly to you, I have lived in very small places, very remote places, the end of a dirt road, if you will, and all the wonderful things that come along with that. The one store on the lake that you could walk to, the limited exposure to other folks, the trouble that you get into when you don't have that stimulation and you're a social person. So I appreciate that very much. And you've been here. So tell me a little bit about what are the things that have allowed you to become more connected to this community, whether it be social groups or whether it be some of the wonderful things that we have in our environment.
So Richmond has a lot of great natural resources, and we take advantage of those opportunities to be on the James and in the parks pretty much every weekend with my family. And I absolutely love, so I've lived in Northside for 20 years and have found an amazing opportunity to get engaged with the Battery Park Civic Association, and then growing community there and getting people to rally around the park with Friends of Battery Park and trying to make sure that our natural resources that are right here in our neighborhood are kept, safe and open for everybody.
And then improved upon. I guess you guys probably had something to do with that wonderful Arthur Ashe mural that is over there.
Yeah, we did. We worked with the city and with the artist and with the family of Arthur Ashe to get that mural installed and beautify the park.
It's a remarkable place. I used to live in the north side, and I very much appreciated it. I was really far to the north, like the farthest you can go, and so I was less walkable to a lot of the amenities that you get to enjoy. But we definitely still made it over there, and definitely not enough. It's actually a pretty big park.
Yeah, it's a huge, beautiful park, and we take advantage of it every single day. And the pool in the summertime, and utilizing the Parks and Recs summer programs there. It's been a wonderful resource.
So you're an organizer, you're an organized person. You have done things like HR and general contracting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about that, and take us a little bit further. You're running for office. What's the bridge there in your mind?
Mm-hmm. So came from the art world. Had a business, opened my first business here in Richmond, selling jewelry. And 2008 happened, pivoted very hard, went into consulting, pivoted a little bit from there, went into doing fractional HR for myself, and for small companies throughout Richmond, and did some facilitations with different city departments, and saw the engagement that we could have as community members and constituents that would enable us to help with city policy and the functions of the city. So in the course of the past year, a lot of community members have reached out to me through the various things that I've done within the third district, but across the city, and saying, we feel like you have a very strong resume, as it were, to be able to go and run for city council and be a good city councilor. So I've been very encouraged by the community, and a lot of other leaders that have encouraged me to do this.
I can imagine it's probably hard to say no to a request like that, but I imagine it's probably also fraught with all sorts of thoughts about, why me, or am I the right person for this job? And obviously you wouldn't be running if you didn't think that you were. And so tell me a little bit about your campaign.
So it's going great. I've got to meet so many more friends and neighbors in the community. And I think that's the biggest part of it for me, is just getting to meet with people and talk with people. I am committing my time right now fully to being a full-time candidate. So I just came from office hours this morning at Stir Crazy. So Tuesdays I will be at Stir Crazy from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning, just whoever wants to join me for coffee. And Thursdays I will be at Smoky Mug on Brooklyn Park Boulevard from 8:30 to 10:30. So just loving campaigning, loving, having conversations with people like this, and looking forward to November.
Well, I am literally, I live in Carver Square, so I'm one, like a couple of parking spots away from being in your district. And I would have been in, or not actually wouldn't have been where I was in the north side. So it was just like interesting kind of carve out in north side of Richmond. I think 3 districts probably span over there, or is it just the 2? It's changing all the time, yes. So I won't hold you to knowing the maps, but
well, we just got part of the second because of the maps being redistricted.
Yeah. So. And so that changes things every time that map changes. Then voters are faced with new choices, and when new candidates come along, they deserve to know more about those folks. So I appreciate you coming in and talking to us today. We are going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Richmond as a whole, and I want to talk a lot more about your creative background, because that seems to be such a driver for Richmond.
Thank you for listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network.
Welcome back. You are listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1 and Choice 105.3. We are part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. We come to you each Thursday at 6 a.m. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have in the studio today Maria Carra Rose, District 3 City Council candidate for the city of Richmond. There's so many words that you have to pack into that that I'm going to get it every time, but it'll take me a second. So you've been a long-time contributor to Richmond, and like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about your art background, because I find that there's so many different mediums, and your medium of art is certainly different from a lot of what we see. I mean, we see all kinds here in Richmond, but tell me a little bit about that world, and maybe tell our listeners if you're still finding some time to dabble in your creative endeavors.
I do find some time to dabble in my creative endeavors. I recently made wedding rings for a dear friend, so I'm not doing that so much right now. but I continue to practice here and there. I love Richmond, and I'm so fortunate that I have gotten to go to VCU and become part of the arts community here. Honestly, the reason why I live in Battery Park is because one of my good friends, Noah Scalin, lives down the road from me. And he was like, hey, there's a really good little art community over here. So have continued to work with the arts community, was on the board for Gallery 5 for a brief stint, trying to help continue their efforts to broaden the art world and make sure it's accessible for Richmond and the community. And I think it is a really big draw for the city. I think that's probably why we were on one of CNN's top list of places to visit, is because of, all of the people in the creative community that continue to put out work and make sure that this is a beautiful city to participate in.
Well, there's certainly a lot of cranes in the sky. There's a lot of excitement happening. I think the vibe is evolving perhaps a little bit from what it was. And you've been here longer than I have, so you might know better. But maybe let's talk a little bit about the 3rd District, because the maps have changed. Maybe describe where you're going to talk to neighbors and who you need to talk to win their votes, and maybe tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're telling them and what you hope to see for the future.
So I'm doing meet and greets across the city, or across the community. In the 3rd District, we have made it a point to make sure that Southern Barton Heights, Northern Barton Heights, Battery Park, Brooklyn Park Boulevard, Ginter Park Terrace, Ginter Park, Bellevue, Rosedale, and I'm going to forget a few, Washington Park. There's a lot of neighborhoods that people are really, really passionate about. So I'm just out in those communities every Thursday evening and every Sunday evening, walking around, knocking doors, trying to meet people, and doing meet and greets here and there in between. So a meet and greet is just somebody hosting me at their house very graciously, and asking me to share a little bit about myself, about my background, and about my hopes for Richmond. And for the 3rd District.
So what about the 3rd District? There's a lot going on over there. There's a lot of development happening along Brooklyn Park, some new apartments, some new retail. Ruby Scoops is sticking around and getting a bigger store. That's a lot of excitement. Yeah.
Corey Wiener is one of the developers for that project. And he's doing a great job making sure that we keep seeing growth in that corridor. And Willie Hilliard is the president of the Brooklyn Park Merchants Association, and he's doing a lot of work with the community as well, making sure that we do have a safe, walkable community in Brooklyn Park. So I'm excited to see the growth. There's a lot of great places down there, Harlem Blues, if you want a drink, or Fuzzy Cactus, Smoky Mug's getting a new spot. They're going to move across the street and be in a bigger building.
And there's a new restaurant being developed on the corner of Brooklyn Park and North. Is that still happening?
That's Smoky Mug.
Oh, okay.
They're moving over there.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So I was a favorite of that place, and that has changed venues a couple of times. And you're naming all my favorite spots. I think Fuzzy Cactus probably had me out there every Thursday night for, Tuesday night, Honky Tonk Tuesday.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's a great place. I love that place.
Yeah. And you mentioned Stir Crazy. And so that neighborhood is, I can see why anybody that lived in any of these neighborhoods would fall in love. And there are people from all over the city that come and visit those businesses.
They do, yeah. Fuzzy Cactus, for one, gets a big draw. Ruby Scoops gets an amazing draw, especially on the weekends in the summertime. She's running a great business, but she makes an amazing product that people genuinely flock to from all over the city for. And out of state, some out-of-state visitors are coming for her delicious ice creams. But yeah, Bellevue is a beautiful neighborhood as well. Very walkable, very engaging, and being over there every Thursday morning, or every Tuesday morning, I should say, getting to see regulars come in and out of the coffee shop, and getting to know most of the business owners over there has been really delightful.
Well, what would you say? With the growth that's coming, obviously change is going to demand other things change, and other needs are going to emerge. What are some of the things that North Side and specifically 3rd District need now to be able to, foster that kind of healthy growth and enable, make sure that people aren't being displaced, and making sure that people are not having a negative experience as a result of some of these good things that are happening?
Yeah. The biggest things that I'm hearing on the doors and when I sit down with people is housing affordability, making sure that people can stay in their homes, especially older residents. Safety, transportation safety, making sure the streets are safe for everybody. Multimodal transportation is a big issue of mine. I want to make sure that we have safe bus routes for GRTC. We have safe bus routes for students who ride RPS buses, bikes, walking, anybody who uses an implementation to get around wheelchair users, mobility methods like that. I just want to make sure that our streets are safe for everybody, and that what I'm hearing also a lot of is that we are experiencing a lot of speeding. So Northside, there's a big pass through on Laburnum, but also on Brooklyn Park Boulevard, where a lot of traffic comes from the east side to get into the city, and people use it like a speedway. And we have community members and residents who live there who are being negatively affected and impacted by that. So making sure that we're slowing down and making sure that we're traveling safe to and from.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, one of the challenges that we face in this region is that we are a regional community. And so we're bordering in your area, Henrico County is right there. And so if they're not working to try to mitigate some of those issues, then it can exacerbate. I lived on Enslow for 5 years, and folks would use Carolina Avenue as that same kind of, like get down to the other side of the street as fast as I can. So, and they've made that road as wide as it needs to be that fast too. So I think that there's definitely some infrastructure changes that we can see. And, you're not the only candidate for office. Certainly higher levels, that transportation component is so important because as we grow and as we see this change, the need for connectivity is going to be so important. So I think when you look at places like Battery Park, I mean, that park connects multiple parts of that neighborhood due to the way that it's laid out. And I think that's just such a wonderful way to build community.
And it's designed also to make sure that it's safe. It's a safe connection. So there's the tunnel so that kids don't have to cross the street to be able to access either playground or the pool. So.
What would be some of your hopes for commercial development? What are some of the businesses that the North Side could use and their district could use to accommodate some of the folks that are either moving there or that already live there?
Yeah, number one thing is a grocery store. That is the biggest complaint, that we do not have a grocery store in the 3rd District. Another is banking infrastructure. We've lost some banking infrastructure that we need to put back into place. One of my neighbors continually tells me that we just lost our dry cleaner at the top of the street. So I think to have a healthy and thriving community, we need to have certain services and businesses in place to be able to support the growth in the community.
Yeah. And I know that you also have, maybe it's not your district, but you guys have had some other things develop in the neighborhood, like homeless shelters and other things like that. I know those are causing concerns for people. Are you seeing those? They're so needed, and we need to put them someplace. Are you seeing those continue to cause challenges for folks? Do we need to look at those things any further, or are we seeing that integrate into the neighborhood in a healthy way?
So I have had some people who have brought it up as a concern because it is an inclement weather shelter and not a year-round shelter. I think that they are trying to work with Salvation Army and the city services to get wraparound services in that building. To make sure that our community members, our houseless neighbors, are cared for. And I think that is something we can do more work on. And ultimately, I think it is a priority of mine to communicate with the community what these services are and what the need is for them, so that they aren't afraid of our houseless neighbors, so that we can work together to make sure that we solve or resolve some of those issues. We also need to be working with, again, to your point, working with the counties, because some of their residents are coming here for these services, and we need to make sure that they are engaged in a way that is beneficial and helpful for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I see with this is that we have neglected certain problems in society for so long that a larger and larger portion of folks are at the end of their rope, whether that be financial or whether that's mental health or addiction. There's just so many things that are kind of driving these challenges. And I've seen the point in time most recently showed that we actually had an uptick in homelessness in the region this year, so this summer. so we have more work to do there, and I think that my belief is, at least if we can bring those folks along, then our whole community sees some improvement.
Absolutely.
And I think that we can maybe even spend less on services if we can get them stably housed.
Yeah, there needs to be a bigger plan in place. There are some places in the city that are doing that, and I think that we need to connect those.
So we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the future of Richmond and ideas for community health, and just really kind of, we'll wrap up a little bit more with how folks can get in touch with you and everything else.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network.
Welcome back. I hope you're having a great start to your day. I'm Will Melton, your host for America's Healthiest City. We are charging forward with a 10-year community partnership to make the entire region the healthiest in America. If you're tuning in for the first time this morning, I have Maria Carra Rose, candidate for 3rd District City Council in the city of Richmond. We're talking about our outdoor spaces and the businesses that are coming, the businesses that are needed, and the challenges that Richmond continues to face. There's no panacea, obviously. We're not going to be able to solve it by waving a magic wand. We've got to solve problems up and down sort of this spectrum of society. But I'm curious, from everybody that comes onto this program, when you think about health and community health, what is maybe just one idea that comes to mind for you for ways that folks could get involved in advancing that cause?
Mm-hmm. So the Sierra Club and Beyond Methane Richmond are doing a lot of work to help bring awareness around our aging gas infrastructure. So our natural gas infrastructure, Richmond Gas Works, is one of the oldest in the country, and we have a lot of leaking pipes and infrastructure getting that gas from distribution centers to residents in houses and businesses as well. So they have done a lot of work educating the community in about what that means as far as our health is concerned. So Richmond specifically has a very high asthma rate, and right now September is a very high asthma season, and natural gas will lead to that if it's not capped properly or used in houses without proper ventilation. So I think making sure that more people are aware that that those things are happening and how to mitigate those.
Mm-hmm. And I think methane is one of the greatest contributors to greenhouse gas accumulation, which we need to curb. I spent a lot of time this morning, maybe too much time this morning, reading about the health hazards of micro and nanoplastics, which we have some sense of correlation, but not enough evidence to really draw that tie. And I can't help but to think that, it's all tied together. It's the oil and gas industry. It's these chemicals that we decided that, have importance in our society, but we've just gotten so hooked on them.
Well, and it's not just hooked. I think it's like it was designed to be that way.
Yes.
That it's continually part of our day-to-day lives now, and it's going to be a slog to remove and reduce those things.
Yeah. Well, and we could talk about the combined sewer overflow as another one of those infrastructure problems that old cities face. And I continue to lament about the short changing that happens for the city of Richmond from the state legislature around, how much of our land is not taxed because it's owned by VCU or the state in some capacity, or the city. So, I'm sitting here talking about all the problems. I'm not expecting you to answer ideas for how we solve these things, but I think it just speaks to the gravity of the need to actually engage in these problems.
It is, and the CSO, the combined sewer overflow, absolutely needs to be addressed because, as we started out saying, the James River and the natural beauty of Richmond is one of the biggest draws, and if we continue to disrespect that by not taking care of that infrastructure, that failing infrastructure, then we're going to lose one of the biggest draws to the city. And I think that we need to prioritize getting the funding to repair that.
Yeah, well, I don't know that anybody would disagree with you, and I don't know. I know that the problem is massive and it's very expensive, so we'll be working on it for a while. Oh gosh, I had a really good thought that came to my mind, and maybe it flew away, but I welcome your continued thoughts, and something that I definitely want to know, and no pressure here, but we're always looking for guests who can share with us, their pursuits and passions and things they're doing to make the community better. So if you have somebody that you could recommend, we'd love to hear that too.
To come on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I was going to say, have you talked with Kevin, and I'm going to butcher his last name, from the Sierra Club? He would be an amazing person to bring on.
Okay, yeah.
Because he's helped educate me with all of the natural gas and methane information. And
well, there's a lot to learn there. I think our listeners would appreciate that. I certainly would love to learn more about it myself.
Yes.
So, actually, the thought that was coming to mind is Pulse, North-South Pulse. That would be a total game changer for your district.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest projects that I'm excited about.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that. And where's the uncertainty? How far out are we?
I don't know the exact date.
Yeah.
I do know that they need to do a lot of community stakeholder engagement to make sure that the community understands the benefit of the Pulse, and also understands that what the timeline looks like, and we need to make sure that we're communicating like how this is going to benefit the community, what the impact is going to be, if any, and how people can use it for their benefit. I think another thing that we need to look at is funding fare-free GRTC beyond 2025, because our fare-free GRTC runs out next year, and making it so that people across the entire city can utilize that service to get to work, to get to fun events, and just taking care of their day-to-day needs.
Well, I would encourage anybody who's listening. I know that the city shares out information about those feedback sessions for North-South Pulse, as well as other partners, GRTC and I think Plan RVA. So important. I don't know if people have been paying attention, but the Pulse on East-West has really led to a massive amount of development, and it's really changing the face of Broad Street and every place that goes. So if you live in North Side or if you live in South Side, this is going to really be a game changer for the entire city.
Yeah, for sure. And making sure that we have access to the entire city.
And I think you have Fall Line Trail coming through your neighborhood too,
yes,
right?
I just went to the groundbreaking for that. I'm very excited about it. Me and my family are big bike advocates and love a nice protected space to ride. The trail itself is going to have a trailhead that is just past the city line in Lakeside with the new Sportsbackers complex, and so I'm excited to see that happening.
I will have a conversation with Megan Schultz from Sportsbackers very soon in that new office. So I'm excited about learning more about that. Before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and potentially support your campaign if they feel so inclined.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on and taking the time to talk with me. I can be reached at carraforcouncil.com. That's CARRAFORCOUNCIL.com. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm at Stir Crazy on Tuesday mornings for coffee from 8:30 to 10:30, and at Smoky Mug from 8:30 to 10:30 on Thursdays.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas. Richmond is, like this vibe is really growing, and I'm feeling it. I think other folks are too, and I appreciate your contributions.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and taking the time with me.
Absolutely. This was America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1 each Thursday, 6 a.m. You can catch us here. If you're not subscribed, follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and now wherever you get your podcasts. We'll catch you next week.